So I'm here to talk about what it means to be a full conscious woman, or a fully conscious woman. So what does it mean to be a fully conscious woman? So how does a fully conscious woman live? That might be the clues. Well, she lives in the flow with what is. She is connected to the rhythm of the earth and the moon and her body and her life. And she is fully aware of the impact of not living like this. That's why she chooses to live like this. This is actually how we all used to live like, and how our bodies are designed to live, and actually how it's happening anyway, whether you're paying attention or not. So it's rather worthwhile to live as a fully conscious woman, flowing with what is, rather than not going with the flow. This gives that whole go with the flow real meaning and purpose in our life. It could be the one-liner for women, go with the flow. Or whatever, it be that the energy of a day, a year, a lunar cycle, a menstrual cycle, or a life. Because if you don't go with the flow, then you just meet obstruction. So, awakening to and flowing with what's going on around and within her is what it means to be a fully conscious woman. So firstly, I want to tell you what led me to understanding all of this. And then I'm going to share a map with you that is the foundational information so that you can better understand what going with the flow means, what the flow is. And it won't be anything you don't know. Our bodies are already functioning in the way that I'm going to remind you of. My teacher, Janine Pavati-Baker, one of my beautiful, awesome teachers, she used to take words apart to find the greater meaning, and remember was one of them. So what we're going to do today is remember, in other words, put ourselves back together with this information. So how I came to know this and to learn about this, I'm just going to put my spectacles on so I can see what I've written. I like these words I wrote, so I'm going to read them to you. I grew up a rebellious but compliant daughter of the patriarchy. And it wasn't until I started my midwifery training as a 25-year-old in a big Sydney city hospital that I actually realised how inappropriately, to say the least, women and their babies were being treated in hospital around one of the biggest and most important experiences of their life. Their experience of giving birth was organised around policies and protocols that were more about time efficiency and fear, and so often the clock or the calendar were the determining factors. All these constraints and pressures on an experience whose closest relative is actually orgasming, and that we know will not be rushed and needs time and care and love, just what a birthing woman needs. So seeing all this had a big effect on me, and it actually woke me up. I became a home birth midwife, and I learned from the mothers who I cared for that there was a lot more going on than risk factors and timing. I learned that the way we give birth is as if a culmination of our life thus far, and like a readout of our inner beliefs, attitudes and fears. And I also learned that this, our mindset, is created by our experiences and is also inherited from our family and our culture. And I learned that our experience of menstruation and our experience of menarche, our first period, as well as how we were born ourselves, all influence how we give birth. And that all influences how we go through menopause and ultimately death, the final rite of passage. So my life work, the basis of the School of Shamanic Midwifery, which I founded, is about helping women to remember that everything is connected and that our bodies are as if the earth. We are made of the same stuff as everything else on the planet. And so we're subjected to all the different energies that the earth is subjected to, or creating, or co-creating with the other celestial bodies, whether we realise it or not. Whether we pay attention to it or not, it's still affecting us. But our culture encourages a separation from the earth. That way we can treat it like a resource to be used and abused. And as is well known, how a culture treats the earth is a reflection of how it treats the feminine. And that doesn't just mean women, that means the feminine, the yin, the feminine aspect of women and men. So if you want to read more about all of that, you can go to my website and find the download of the Herstory, which is a story of the effect of the patriarchy on the feminine. So now I'm going to draw you a map. So I'm just going to slide this over. This is so what I'm going to do is draw you a wheel. It's something, again, I said, you know this very well. I think I'll just have to hold it. No, it's okay. I can manage. I'm a woman. I can do more than one thing at a time. Well, that's the thing we've been telling everybody, isn't it? So firstly, I'm going to draw a circle. Oh, nearly got it all the way around. And this is the sacred sign of the feminine. No straight lines. And usually I take a whole workshop to do this, and I'm going to do this in an hour. So firstly, I'm putting the compass on here. Compass is a very good thing to have when you're lost. So we start with the compass. North, south, east, west. And then we've got the cardinal. Oh my God, that went straight through the middle. It's a good omen. That doesn't always happen. So on this as well, we can put the clock, the 24-hour clock. So this is 12 midday. This is 12 midnight. This is 0600 or 6 a.m. No, I'm going to get everybody completely confused with that. I'm just going to call that 6 a.m. And then this is 6 p.m. So this map goes this way. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it goes the other way. So if you were born in the northern hemisphere, you're going to be feeling like you're upside down looking at this. But you've got to go with the flow of where you are in the southern hemisphere. So every morning in the east, the sun rises. Every evening in the west, the sun sets. Midday we have full sun, and midnight we have no sun. We have stars. We may have the moon, but not every night. So this is 6 a.m. sunrise, which isn't the same every day, obviously, but that's kind of like the archetypal time. Moving around to 9 a.m., midday, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m., midnight, and 3 a.m. So just looking at the clock now, it's nearly 11 o'clock, so that's here. So you all know what this feels like at this time. It's kind of like we're headed toward the halfway point of the day, but we're not actually there yet. We're well and truly awake. Or maybe we're starting to feel a little bit of a slump in our blood sugar level, so we're wanting to eat soon. So part of the other way that we make this map is when we eat. So if you can just imagine now how it feels at 11 o'clock, then you'll be able to get a good feel for how this map works. So sunrise at 6 is waking up, building up to getting out of the house or out of bed and into the world. Midday is the peak of the day, the height of the sun, and then after midday we come around to the afternoon, 3, 4, 5, 6, when you're coming more into an inward place, and then into the evening, 9, 12, and then after midnight, rising again up to these hours of the early morning and then sunrise again. So this is the cycle of the day. And if we don't go along with the cycle of the day, we pay for it. People who do, say, permanent night shifts, they don't live very healthy lives. It's not the way we're supposed to be. We are made to sleep when it's dark and be awake when it's light. And that's why daylight savings is always such a tricky thing with young children. So, this is the flow of the day, and it's the cycle of birth, growth, full bloom, harvest, decay, death, rebirth, growth, full bloom, harvest, decay, death, rebirth, over and over and over again. Every cycle is the same cycle, just in different lengths. So that's one day. So now we can put on this the cycle of the seasons, so the earth. So I'll just change colours. So matching the same energy as a sunrise, which is new beginnings, is the season of spring. So this is spring. And spring, which we've only just left, so you can probably still remember what it's like, is new beginnings, the beginning of all sorts of things growing, and new energy coming towards awakening from winter and bringing life to new things, whether that's animals being born in the paddocks or new ideas and projects or the beginning of a whole new experience of being. So spring holds that energy. And then following spring is autumn. Sorry, summer. I just looked at the orange and thought I'm saving that for autumn and so it's summer. And that's where we are now. And our Gregorian calendar tells us that the first day of summer is December 1, and it was actually pretty hot, but actually summer starts at Beltane, which is on October 31st. Beltane. No, not Halloween. It's Halloween in America, in the Northern Hemisphere. So Halloween is the third and final harvest festival, and it's in the autumn, the final harvest festival when the pumpkins are ready to be picked off the vines. But just recently, October 31st here is actually high peak spring. There's no pumpkins. There's blossoms on the tree luring the birds and the bees. But we're faithful to the Northern Hemisphere and we celebrate many of our festivals along the line with them, including Easter. We celebrate in autumn with pretending that it's a spring festival with eggs and bunnies. But yeah, no wonder it gets mixed up. So summer, where we are now, is about the peak energy of the year. You can all feel it. So it's now, what's the date? 6th of December. So it's 16 days until the summer solstice, which is here. So it's kind of, this period of time is 6 weeks. So we're headed here, the summer solstice, which is the peak of the year. And you can all feel the energy building to it. There's so much that we're building toward at this time of the year. School terms finishing, holidays are being planned, we're all thinking about Christmas. Again, another strange festival to be having in the summer, but we still spray snow on the windows. We're so faithful and so good. So we're heading towards the peak of the summer, and there's this building energy. I'm sure you can all feel it. And depending on how you're negotiating life, it will be either a pleasure or a pain. So it's intense. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, it's just intense. And then following summer, the next season is autumn. And that's so long ago, you can probably hardly remember what that's like, but it has the same energy as sunset. It's the descent. So this is the ascent, and this is the descent. So autumn has the same energy as the setting sun, and also the harvest. And then following autumn, we have winter. And this circle hasn't really lined up. But so winter which has the same energetic vibe as midnight. I'm sorry, that doesn't look very nice to all the Virgos. It's an egg shape, which is actually not... No, I won't try and justify it. So, winter follows autumn, and then spring, summer, autumn, winter. So, this is really the easiest way to learn this information because we all know what the energy of the seasons is. And I'm talking the archetypal seasons, right? So, just the four. Like where I live up in the Southern Highlands, up over the cliff up there, there's 6 seasons. And it's marked by the blooming of the different wattles at different times. But we'll just use these archetypal seasons to get it because we all know what these mean. So just using that cycle again, so birth, growth, full bloom, harvest, decay, death, rebirth, growth, full bloom, harvest, decay, death. Just think of an apple tree. So in the winter, it basically looks dead. But there's a lot going on. It's got root growth happening and sap rising in the trunk and to the branches. And then at the beginning of spring, we start to see the just the little buds that are still sort of encased in the branches and new life. And then that opens and the flower comes out. And then the petals fall, and then the leaves start to come. And then the petals fall off, and where the petals were, the fruit forms. Now, what a metaphor. I mean, it's not even a metaphor. You know, where the petals are, the fruit forms. And then the fruit, as anybody got an apple tree, they'll know that what's going on now is that the apples are just starting to happen. They're about the size of a walnut on our tree. I don't know if anyone's got bigger ones. And then come the end of summer, in the autumn, is the harvest time for the apples. And then the leaves change colour, and the apples that fall to the ground are harvested and picked, and then the leaves start to fall off. So in the autumn, it's about harvest and decay, because when the leaves fall on the ground, they form like the compost, which protects the earth, and they fall above the apples that fall off the tree, which have the seeds, which then gestate in the earth over the winter and then sprout again in the spring, and the whole cycle goes on and along. Another way to remember this is the life cycle of a rose, which doesn't necessarily happen with the seasons, but explains this really well. So the spring equivalent of a rose is like, you know, that here, that tiny little bud that's still covered in green. And then coming up toward here, starts to open, you see that there's petals inside. And then around this phase in the growth cycle of the rose, it's just opening. And then up to here, this point is the Valentine's Day rose that you would want to fall into if you were a bee or a whatever. And then here is the full bloom rose, just fully open. Maybe with a little discreet petal over the stamen, maybe not, and smelling beautiful. And then past its full bloom, the rose then starts to, the petals keep going basically. And coming further back, a little bit brown around the edges, but this is the time when the rose smells the most amazing. And then the petals continue to fall off, and it's looking very bedraggled. And then, no petals for a while, and then the rose hip forms, which is the essence of the rose, which holds the seeds of the rose, which is like powerful, powerful medicine, vitamin C concentrated. So the results of that rose, it takes a whole growth cycle to grow a rose hip. So, starting to get it? Okay, so now what we can do on this is put our life seasons. So that's the Earth. We've seen the day, it takes 24 hours. The Earth seasons, which take a year, we've called it a year. And then the life seasons I'm going to put on now, which take however long the life is. Each one of these lines, I mentioned here Beltane, but each one of these lines has a ancient festival that our ancestors have celebrated forever. And what they did at these festivals really depended on, wasn't just celebrating, it was about doing what was required to feed the community. So, if you don't plant anything in spring, you haven't got anything to eat in autumn, and then you're probably going to have nothing, sorry about no food in winter. So these are called the Sabbats. So we just had Beltane. We're heading towards the summer solstice, or Litha is its ancient name, and that's on December 22. And that will be followed toward the end of summer is Lammas, which is on February 2, and that's the first of 3 harvest festivals that take up autumn. And then this is the autumn equinox, or Mabon, the second harvest festival, and this is Samhain, or Halloween, the third and final harvest festival at the beginning of winter. And then this is the winter solstice, or Yule, get it? It's the shortest day of the year. And then peak midwinter, and then winter ends, so that's June 22. Winter ends with Imbolc, or Candlemas is its more recent name. Imbolc, it means ewe as in sheep milk. So it's the beginning of the season of life beginning. So Imbolc there, and that's on August the 2nd, and then up to the spring equinox, or Ostara, Easter, in March 21-22. Equal day, equal night, these ones. And then Beltane, as I just said, and Litha, summer solstice, longest day, shortest night. Okay? So putting on the life seasons is when this gets really interesting. So spring is the season of, I've got a pink one, yes, maiden. So maiden, meaning from 0, so his birth, to 25 or so. And maiden is about birth and growth. And maiden is the time in our lives that has 2 rites of passage, our own birth and our menarche, which is here, our first blood. And then it is heralded, the season of mother is heralded by pregnancy and childbirth. Every pregnancy, no matter what, results in a birth and needs to be honoured in your rite of passage as such. And every birth we have the birth we have is the birth we need to have to teach us what we need to learn about ourselves, to take us to the next place on our journey to wholeness. There's no good or bad, there's no failure, there's the birth you need to have to teach you what you need to learn. So mother season is, you can have a pregnancy before the age of 25 and be a maiden mother, because it's different. This age from 0 to 25 is the time in a healthy way that we need to really honour the freedom and the time for me. The maiden needs to be knowing that the only thing that really matters actually is her, and that we honour and celebrate her. And if we do that, then I bet you there won't be women or people, because this needs to happen for boys too. I bet you there won't be all this we need me time stuff. Because the maiden time or the young boy is a time to be honoured, and it's a time that goes so fast. And our culture wants to grow little people up so fast, you know. You can see by the clothes in the shops, you know, the very strange clothing for little girls in Target even that's got bras and, you know, very sad. So, maintain the maidenhood. And menarche happens, so the first blood happens whenever it happens, just like babies come whenever they come. And menopause takes however long it takes, and you die whenever you die. But we've got other ideas about it, but you know, actually our nature is that it happens when it happens and it takes however long it takes. And each of these rites of passage, birth, menarche, pregnancy and childbirth, and then menopause, which is here. Menopause ends summer or the mother season, and takes however long it takes. The current thinking is that once you've had a year after bleeding, then you're postmenopausal, but there are plenty of us who have bled again 2 or 3 years later. So again, it takes however long it takes. And menopause can't have a diagnosis because it's not a disease. And the autumn phase is the phase that I call Marga, based on a teaching I had from my teacher in America, Cedar Barstow. Their crew over there, when they got to their menopause and they thought, we're not crones. Have way too much life in us and work to do to be crones. We're something different. And so they decided to call themselves Margas, based on the male equivalent of Magus, magician, which is the similar sort of age group, after 50, say. So this is actually a really big time to reclaim in our lives. And the autumn of our lives, which is where I'm at now, where I'm now sharing my harvest. And I don't have little children. I'm a grandmother. I have the opportunity to go out in the world and give what I've learned. So that's the autumn. And the autumn is about, this is the, hang on, I'll come back to that. So then so that's menopause, whenever that is. So that's like 45 to 55. And then around 70, there's a shift. And these are all going to have cusps, because not everybody does the same thing at the same time. But around 70, I noticed with my mother, she was a bit less interested in going out in the world. She was a bit more content to stay home. So, and then that begins the season of crone, which is the old wise woman. And a derogatory term in our culture, which is a bit sad. But whenever there's anything said derogatorily about anything to do with the feminine, be suspicious, because it probably is a clue that there's a lot of power there. And that's the ultimate power, is the rosehip, the crone, the winter when the seeds are gestating. It's the place, you know, and every crone has wisdom. No matter what her life has been, she holds so much wisdom and can be so much help to the mother. And the Marga, who has the energy after mothering, you know that energy in autumn where it's a bit of a relief because the heat's off? Same in this stage of life. She can be very helpful to the maidens because they very rarely listen to their mums. But they listen to their grandmothers or their extended family, older aunties. And these babies up here are lovely companions for the wise women, and they'll listen and they have such wisdom to share. So these rites of passage that happen, whatever happens at any of these rites of passage, birth, menarche, childbirth, menopause, retirement, and death, let's focus on these ones here. Whatever happens during a rite of passage, whatever is said, whatever's going on in your world, whatever happens, teaches you on a subliminal level, so you don't even realise it, how your culture values the next role you're going into and therefore how to behave, or not. But usually when we're like 13 or 9 even is the young menarche time now. There's a few theories on that, and the estrogen pollution, the fertilizers in the food and the animal meats, but also when a new man comes into the home. So like if mum and dad split up and then mum gets a new boyfriend and he comes into the family, then the girls mature faster. So that's one of the things that's, happening a lot. And also because we're fatter and better fed than we may have ever been before as well. So you need to have a certain amount of fat on you to actually ever menstruate. Because the whole idea is that you can have a baby. Yeah. So whatever happened, how are we going at time? Did you want me to finish 11:30?
No.
Okay. So whatever happens at each of these rites of passage really sets your life up. So how you were born is actually how you birth things, or how you do creative process, or how your whole life goes actually. So that's big, right? And it's never a curse. It's the birth you came for, and within it is the gold that you need to find. And there's a great book called Being Born by a kinesiologist who lives in Canberra, Robin Finance, and she goes through every kind of possible birth: emergency cesarean, late, forceps, induction, elective cesarean, wrong sex. Like if you come out and you're a girl and they wanted a boy, and how that impacts how your life unfolds, your learning abilities, your way you do relationship, and everything. It's a fascinating book. I really recommend you get a look at it. It's very helpful in parenting, particularly if you've had children who've had intervention at their birth, cesareans or forceps or whatever. If you can find this information out, it's so helpful because they need certain, and for those of you who were born by forceps or cesarean, those people need a certain way of being with. It's different. Like, they need to find their own time because their time was decided upon by somebody else, for example. And then what goes on during your menarche, so when your first blood comes, and not just when you first see the blood in your undies, but the whole kind of story, that teaches us how our culture values woman and therefore how to behave. So in a minute I'm going to give you a little bit of time to just actually have a think about that. It's a can of worms, I'm sure for many of you, but it's a can of worms you need to open because it will be ruling your life. You will be being the woman that you were subliminally instructed to be until you change your mind. And again, at childbirth, whatever happens around you when you're giving birth, and it can also be whatever's going on in your world, So like, for example, back to menarche, if your family moved and you all of a sudden without friends or something, that's a part of it. And if you can't remember your menarche, just remember your first years of menstruation because it will probably tell the story slightly. And so the experience of menstruation is actually meant to prepare us for childbirth. The cycle of menstruation, which I'll put on here if I've got time, I can put the moon on here and the menstrual cycle on here, and it helps make so much sense of the whole thing. But so menarche is preparing us for menstruation, and menstruation is preparing us for childbirth. So menstruation, the cycle of menstruation is a cycle that if we ignore at our peril. And so does everybody we live. So, and our culture is, like Adriana said, it's a bit yuck, a bit weird. People think So there's a clue of something that is put down or thought of in a negative way, and it holds the most power that you could ever want. Within the menstrual cycle is the most transformative opportunities, personal growth and development that you could ever want. And it's preparation for the rest of your life. So the idea, for example, at bleeding time is like the winter. You want to be in your cave on retreat. And if you don't, then you start the next cycle on the back foot. And you all know this. And so the way the goddess, Mother Nature, intended is that at Menarche, girls be welcomed to womanhood by a circle of women who share with them the knowledge they need to know about how to live with their new fertile bodies, and they welcome them with joy and celebration such that the girl feels she's a young woman now and proud and accepted and valued by her culture. Right? And she knows the power of the feminine because she is it. So that's happening more and more these days because there's some wise mothers around, but I dare say most of you didn't really have that experience. So then that sets you up for being the woman you are, whatever that is, whatever that taught you. So then the menstrual cycle before childbirth teaches you about how you need to slow down, how you need to go within, that the body speaks to you through symptoms that speak of imbalances that need balancing through either the food you eat, the thoughts you think, or the company you keep. And that is preparation, as I said, for birth, because then you know when your body's calling you within. You know, like just take bleeding time. What do you, maybe you've got some cramps, or what do you feel like doing? Like a hot water bottle on the couch or in the bed, just like, everyone leave me alone, and you're tired and you want to sleep, and you sleep because you have prophetic dreams when you bleed. And if nobody will leave you alone, you probably have fights with everybody around you so they will leave you alone. But that's the same place to go in labour when you're having a baby, is within. But most women don't get to practice that with their menstrual cycle. And they come to the birth altar, the altar of transformation, the next rite of passage, primed with the experience they've had of their menstruation, where either they've been on the pill to be regulated as a contraceptive, but, you know, the pill turns off 150 processes in your body. You really need to think about whether it's right. There's a great book called The Pill, Is It Really For You? By Alexandra Pope and Jane Bennett. So it goes through everything. You need to look at that or show your daughters or whatever. So is it any wonder that she who has been taking Panadol or whatever to carry on regardless during her bleeding time and not be, you know, not let the team down, not go to the cave, not go and retreat, but take the pills and keep going? I mean, all you have to do is look at the tampon ads to see how our culture feels about menstruation. Girls wearing white, abseiling and riding horses. As if you want to do that. But take that same approach to childbirth, and that's what intervention is. You know, as soon as it starts hurting, which is the invitation, because pain is a gateway to an altered state of consciousness in birth. As soon as it starts hurting, because we're not used to going within, we're used to seeking without, like, so getting help from outside, so, you know, bring on the painkillers, the epidurals, the opiates, etc. All of which I don't think we need in a normal situation if we know how to flow with the cycle. So, and then what happens at birth teaches you about how your culture values mother, and that's what I saw as a midwife. It's like a production line, and it's It's not a very good story out there. It's changing. There is a revolution, and this is part of it. Anyway, so then motherhood is like the summer of our lives. Busy, 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 busy. And then menopause is the end of the summer. And in terms of the rose, full bloom rose, in terms of the rose here, this is the one that's starting to look a bit like me. The petals are still falling off and going a little bit brown around the edges. They still smell magnificent. But, you know, it's very different to this. This 25-year-old beautiful creature, which is the female, the feminine that our culture likes the most. This is the feminine that many women over here, and even before, spend lots of money on plastic surgery to look like. And then poor she is now being subjected to the option of plastic surgery with labiaplasties to look more like porn stars, which is very sad. The pornographication of our culture is very, very sad. Anyway, I won't dwell on that. So, this rose, and then the petals just keep falling and falling, and then we have the rose hit the crown. So, I'll just quickly put the moon on here, because this is the same cycle over and over. Birth, growth, full bloom, harvest, decay, death, rebirth. So, this is the place of the full moon, which is today, by the way, tonight at 20 to 12. So this is the day of the full moon. So, opportunity for you is to make full moon prayers before tonight, where you give thanks for what you want to see come to its full potential in your life. So, before you go to bed tonight, on the way home, just start thinking of everything you want to call full moon energy into, everything you want to see come to its full potential. Do that tonight. And it's a full moon in Gemini, which is perfect for lots of talking. So, lucky where you go. And then the dark moon is here. And then the new moon is there. And this is the first quarter moon. So remember it's going this way. And the third quarter moon. In the northern hemisphere, it's the opposite. So you can tell it's a waxing moon because when you look up at the moon, the curve of the moon is in this hand, and in a waning moon, the curve is in that hand. And in the northern hemisphere, it's the opposite. Same moon though, always the same moon phase everywhere on the earth, but opposite seasons. So, another important thing to do is to make new moon prayers. So on the day of the new moon, which will be like in, I've got my diary here with it all, and you all need to have a moon diary. So it's so it's full moon today, so it's about 15 or 16 days away. So on the dark moon, which is the day before the new moon, and in your diaries if it says dark moon, it means new moon. So the dark moon is the day before the new moon. You do dark moon prayers where you let go of everything that no longer serves you, and you can itemize. And then on the new moon, you give thanks for the metaphoric seeds that you want to plant, the things you want to grow. So the menstrual cycle, day 1 of bleeding is here. Just like midwinter. So this is the blood phase, 2 to 7 days, whatever. And then, so the menstrual cycle is divided into 4 weeks. So week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So week 1 is like the first half, week 1 is like the second half of winter and the first half of spring. So just imagine yourself in that bleeding state and up to day 7 of your cycle. And then this week 2 is like the energy of the second half of spring and the first half of summer. This is when you have the most energy. This is the time when you love everyone and you remember you have matching clothes and jewellery and you really want to go out and about and have a good time. Here you're just you're in your cave and you're just emerging, probably just wearing the clothes that you dropped on the floor when you took them off. Here you start to remember, oh yeah, I'm sure I've got matching earrings. And then here is ovulation, your personal full moon, your personal high summer, when you are absolutely at your most glorious. And this is the time that you need, the importance of this cycle is that you need to run your life around it. If you've got anything really important to do, particularly a presentation, doing an ovulation or the full moon, which is the ovulation is like your full moon, because at ovulation, the female is the most intelligent, the most articulate, the most present that any human being can be. A woman is at her ovulation. So pay attention to that and use it to your advantage. And then week 3 of the menstrual cycle is like the second half of summer and the first half of autumn. And in the week 3, pay attention to this. In week 3 of your menstrual cycle, so that's just after ovulation, everything that's not working in your life shows up. So that you can let it go with your blood and give thanks for the healed version of that with your new cycle. I've written that in the wrong place. And this is being diagnosed as premenstrual syndrome and is now actually categorised as a mental illness. But actually what's going on is she doesn't comply anymore. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. And the thing is, the things that show up in your life that aren't working will usually show up in relationship or in health, your body. But in terms of relationship, that's really where we meet it the most. So it's never about anybody else. It's just about you. And the people that you have the most challenges with, you've made a sacred contract with to come and do whatever that is with them. And it could be separation, it could be joy, it could be let's learn how to deal with our emotions. I don't know, you'll know. And this is the phase in a woman's cycle when these things start to show up. Just like leaves on the tree. But it's not all, it's not just about negative things, because this is the time of the harvest, so the fruits show up. So what you've been growing all cycle, the fruit is now ready to be seen. And then week 4 of the cycle is like the second half of autumn and the first half of winter, and that's, you're heading into the cave. If you're in this part of your cycle now, congratulations on getting here. You probably tried to talk yourself out of it several times. So, the point of going with the flow of the menstrual cycle is that it's happening anyway. And if you struggle against it, that's what happens, you struggle. And there's so much to be gained from it, so much. So, this actual map, I've made into a poster, I've got them at the back there, and I've also made a little interactive thing so you can figure out where you are with your menstrual cycle and the lunar cycle and the earth season and your life season, and figure out all the different things that are affecting you on any day. So, just to finish up, and there's a lot more that can go into this, I'm sure you're aware. This is like a little taste. Why don't you just all have a little think to yourself now, so maybe you want to close your eyes, maybe you don't, about your menarche, your first love, when your first period came. As I said before, this could be a can of worms, but it is a can of worms you need to know about, because it will be affecting how you live your life, and you may want to update it. And remember, if this memory holds anything upsetting for you, that it's not happening now. Recall it as if it's an old movie. It's not happening again. You are here now and you are in the driver's seat. All you need to do is just change what you're thinking about if it worries you. So have a feel into your experience. Think back to that time, or if you can't remember it, think about back to before and after. And have a feel at what the message was that you received about the value of woman and the right way to behave. And have a think how that's playing out in your life now. And whether you want to actually update your internal beliefs about what it means to be a woman. If nothing's coming to you, don't worry about it. This is huge work. I'm just having a little bit of a see what's there. And given all of that, what would be the message about the value of woman that you need to be reminding yourself of now that you know what you know? What do you want to be living according to? What value of woman do you want to be living according to? It could be very different to the one that you were led to believe through your rite of passage. This is actually a life work, right? So I really encourage you to have a play with this and think about it. Maybe could we just have a few people call out what would be a message about the value of woman that they would like to be living by now?
Be proud of being a woman. I matter and I need to be heard. Be more open and sharing with other women of the struggles and the possibilities, so that we can start living the way that we should be, instead of with the levels of secretive essence that society has kind of pushed us down to. We really need community, not to be secretive and do it all alone.
So you're hearing between all these words what might the menarche have been?
So to be radiant, to be powerful, and also not to have a sense of competition with other women, but to support and be happy for others.
We are strong, connected to the earth and connected to each other.
Awesome. So have a think about what yours is. Maybe you want to write it down and remember it. One of the most important things that this map teaches us, or actually reminds us of, right? You all know this, right? Pretty obvious. Is this too shall pass. Because you are constantly moving on this, whether on your menstrual cycle, on the cycle of a day, on the cycle of a season, or your life seasons. So be present wherever you are, because in a second it's not going to be happening. So, that's one of the main ones. And the other thing I'll just quickly say, in terms of the menstrual cycle, so we ovulate at about halfway, but not necessarily, depends on the length of your cycle. This side of the cycle is called the follicular side half, and this is the luteal phase, this side. This side is fixed, it's always the same for you. It could be that you have a luteal phase of 12 days or 16 or 14 is the average, but it's always the same until you start going through the change of life when anything goes, because you probably don't ovulate as much anymore. But this side of the cycle, weeks 1 and 2, are the sides that is the side that's either shorter or longer. So if your cycle gets longer or shorter, it's this side that's longer or shorter. That side's fixed. And also, we also have the chance of ovulating a second time in the cycle. So not everybody knows this. It's called the lunar ovulation, and there's research to back it up, and it's important to know for conception and contraception, because you have the opportunity to ovulate on the day in your cycle when the moon is the same phase as it was on the day you were born. So if you were born on a full moon, then every full moon you may ovulate, even if you're bleeding. So I'm sure many of you have gotten pregnant at times when you thought it wasn't going to happen. That's the lunar ovulation. So I've got a book with me if you want to come and find out your lunar ovulation sometime during the day. Very important information. Tell everybody about it. And the last thing I just want to say is, thank you, how reconnecting with the menstrual cycle is something that we just really have to do. And back in the day, women used to, before electricity, all women ovulated on the full moon and bled on the dark moon, because there's switches in our heads based on melatonin and the production of hormones to make this cycle happen that are regulated by the amount of light in the night sky. So full moon's the most light in the night sky. That's when we're meant to ovulate. Doesn't happen anymore. It's different. It's not bad. It's different. And apparently 25% of women are bleeding at any one time. And the ovulating woman is the most articulate and clever and commanding, but the bleeding woman is in her power, deeply rooted and connected to the earth. 25% of women around the planet are bleeding at any one time, so maybe that's what the earth needs now. A quarter of us holding that deep connection. So, I just want to tell you briefly about the Waratah project, which is a project that me and some other menstrual educators are involved in, doing this research across the globe with a survey that I really would love if you could grab a flyer and do the survey. The last time for it is the end of the year, gathering research about women's experience of their menarche and their menopause and their menstrual experience to basically show that there needs to be more education for girls around the menstrual cycle because of how little there is, and really appreciate your support in that if you could be bothered with filling out a questionnaire and sharing that with as many people as you can. So what will happen is that menstrual education will become something that's more valued and more available to our girls and all of the big girls who need to catch up. Okay, so thank you for your attention, and I know that was a lot of information, and if this appeals to you, then explore it further. There's lots of resources around about this, and it really can help you understand what's going on and how to be with it. And each of these rites of passage is really important, and Marie's going to concentrate on menopause a bit later, so have a good time with that. And yeah, so in terms of your menarche and having a feel into how that was for you, probably what will happen now, if you keep that channel open, is you'll start to remember more things and you'll start to piece things together. So just really be welcome and open to that, because it's starting, it will be the start, if it's the start for you, of unfolding that whole mystery. If it's the next piece for you, then it'll be the next piece. So, okay, thank you.